In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.
So welcome, Lesley. I am so excited for you to be the guest today because I know of all the people out there, you are definitely one of them that has been intentional about becoming more and very purposeful about your life. So thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Dianna, you have been a mentor of mine for years, and it's just an honor to be on here.
Wow, I have such great deal of respect for you. And I know you're going to be sharing a lot of things with our people that are listening or watching this on YouTube. And for all of you out there, become a subscriber because we have great people like Lesley on the podcast. And I'm so excited about you particularly, Lesley, because you've been going through some things that, well, you've kind of reinvented yourself. And I want to take us back, though, to the day you were a teacher, just to give them a little bit of a foundation. You were a teacher, you got into real estate. You did both of those, though, at the same time, working from early morning till late at night. As a woman, I want to know, how did you take care of the kids and your household with all that going on?
Well, luckily, Dianna, I actually did not have the children at the time. And you're going to die laughing when you find out about this because I got into real estate in October, the end of October of 2005, and I got pregnant with our first child in January of 2006, and I was still teaching, working in real estate, and had my first pregnancy all in 1 year.
Oh, my word. And you were Rookie of the Year.
And I was Rookie of the Year.
Okay, so you were producing in school, you were producing in real estate, and you were producing at home. I got to tell you, you are a workaholic.
I was. I mean, fast forward now, and I'm like, no wonder I had a little burnout in 2022. It just all caught up to me since 2006.
You know, starting out that way, being Rookie of the Year, having your husband join you after a couple of years, building this massive empire of not only having a great team of 3 market centers, which are offices, for those of you who are listening and don't know the terminology that we use, and then expanding into other states, growing bigger and bigger, giving more and more people opportunity. And you can listen to all of this by when I interviewed Lesley and her husband, Andy. Now, though, I want to go into 2022. You just hit burnout.
Massive.
You've been going and proving yourself. What happened and how did you know you were in burnout?
So well, we all know when COVID happened, we all just buckled down, and it was honestly one of the best real estate markets that we had ever seen in our career post-COVID. And so we're working, crazy hours, leading our team through that. And in 2021 is when I really started experiencing for the first time a lack of passion around the business. And I had always been the person that got up every day and I was so excited to go to work. And it was always really hard for me to shut my brain off because I just loved what I did so much. And in 2021, we turned over essentially our entire real estate team. We all know that people were looking for new ways of working in 2021. And it was honestly, we saw it as a pandemic, right? Across the country, like people were changing jobs. And so we turn over the real estate team, but in the midst of all this, I'm diving in, working crazy hours. I lost my grandmother, who has been just like a hero to me my entire life. Unexpectedly, she had a stroke. And then about 6 months later, I lost my mom's sister, my aunt, who I love dearly. And so all of this happened within a period of a year. And honestly, Dianna, I didn't even stop to mourn their deaths because I couldn't, because I felt like I had to keep this team alive and together. And I was working like crazy. And I remember going home and going to their funerals and just going through the motions. And then in November, after my aunt passed away, is when November of 2021 is when I really just kind of lost it. And I said, this isn't fair. Like I haven't even mourned their deaths. Like I have been so caught up in this business. Like I'm completely out of alignment, right? Like I cannot continue to live this way. And so, Dianna, I know you're a big fan of NLP. And so I actually hired a neuro-linguistic programming coach, I guess you would call it, to help me get through what I kind of deemed, I mean, looking back, it was probably one of the hardest times I've experienced in my life. And in 2022, um, after I spent about 6 months with this neuro-linguistic programming coach, and it really got me clear on where I was and where I wanted to go in the future of my life, and that I had to take care of myself first before I could take care of anyone else. And it was so awesome that I actually talked Andy into right after I finished with a coach. I talked Andy into doing it, and he did it for 3 months. And throughout that process, we made so many important decisions in our life, which, we uprooted our family and we moved across the state of Georgia. And that all came out of this. We've got to reprioritize what our family wants. And it's got to be family first. And business cannot continue to rule our lives.
Well, the interesting part about that, and knowing the way that the brain works, not grieving, not allowing yourself that time to mourn, really does a number on not only our brain, but to our physical body. And so I can understand how all of a sudden you hit this wall. I've got to ask you though, were you a people pleaser back then?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I rarely said no. In fact, I always said yes. And how can we make this happen? And so I had never really put any boundaries in place in my life. And I just said yes to everyone. And including clients, right? Like, I mean, our clients and our team members essentially like ruled my world.
So here you are, you're really working to please other people. You're not allowing yourself to grieve or to mourn. And you hit this wall because the brain and the body can only take so much. Thank goodness you realized that the neuro-linguistic programming will help you. And of course, being a coach that uses that, I realize what it can do for people. You have to absolutely agree to it, though. Was there any part of you that said, oh, I can make it through. I pushed through everything else. I can push through this as well?
Yeah, I did for a little while. And then I think losing my aunt was like the last straw. It was like, I can't keep doing this. And at the same time, our kids had come to us, and this was really similar timing from the other podcast that we did with you that you guys may know about. But our kids came to us and said, we want to leave Atlanta. We want to move somewhere new. And so all of this was stirring at the same time. And as this is happening, I literally just said, I've got to have help. Like I've never felt this before. And I've always been more of an anxious person than a depressed person. And for the first time, I kind of felt myself like maybe going into a bit of like depression.
Mm. Okay, so now things are happening to where you're taking notice. And when you're intentional the way you are, you had to be intentional about doing something, and you decide to go on this sabbatical. Share with us, how did you decide to do it? How long was it? And what did you learn when you were in it?
Absolutely. So in 2022, after we made the decision to move, I gave myself a year to get the team really grounded, the real estate team really grounded. And so I could actually prepare to go on a sabbatical. And so I think that was key because you had to have preparation and you had to have the plan in place, right? So I said, you know what? I've never taken real time off with our children. Like we've gone on vacations, but I've still kind of had this phone glued to me at all times, right? Like I've never like had a real vacation, and our children are getting to the age that they're going to be going off to college soon. And I said, I want one summer. And so, Dianna, we all know it takes 66 days to form a habit. And I said, you know what? I want one summer with my kids and I want to form new habits of self-care that I can take care of myself. So my sabbatical was actually 66 days.
No, wait, 66 days sabbatical means you're not talking on the phone that much. You're not doing social media. What did you cut out in your life during that sabbatical?
I cut out all social media, which was really hard for me because we get so much business off of social media, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we help our agents through social media. So I completely got off social media. I didn't take any work-related calls, only calls from friends and family. I honestly was really intentional about my relationships and my friendships because I felt like that had been lacking. Like I had not put a priority on that because we were working all the time. I mean, and so I just said, you know what, for this sabbatical, I'm going to focus on me and then I'm going to focus on my family. And when I looked at myself, I mean, I had gained, Dianna, like 20 pounds in 2 years. And I know why, because I was so stressed out and going through such a tough time that I was not meal planning and I was not doing the things to take care of myself. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna start liking the gym. I've always refused the gym. I'm like, I'll just walk, right? And I said, I'm gonna start going to the gym. I'm gonna start strength training. I'm gonna walk 10,000 steps a day, at least 4 days a week, right? I've always woken up every morning and done my devotion, but I've never journaled. So I said, you know what? I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do my devotion. I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to strength train 3 days a week. I'm going to walk 4 days a week, 10,000 steps. And I'm going to do fun things with the kids, do fun things with friends, and I'm going to develop some hobbies.
Now, you're very determined, very intentional, very purpose driven. So, did you just start all of it at one time, put it in your calendar, and everything just clicked? Or did you have a little bit of a challenge doing that?
I did. I mean, of course I did. I'm like, day one. I mean, like schedule. I mean, this is horrible, but this is so me. I'm like, okay, what does my perfect day look like? You know? So I'm like, well, your perfect day, you wake up, you spend time with your children, right? You spend time with Andy in the morning, and then you do your devotion, and then you journal, and then you go work out or walk or whatever. And then I would have lunch with friends. And I mean, I really did kind of just dive in. What's funny though is it took me about 2 weeks to feel somewhat comfortable.
I bet. I was going to ask you, how long was it I mean, you wanted to get back in the business. You had to have that urge.
Oh, I mean, this is really embarrassing to admit, but especially the first 2 weeks, Andy's office is in the house is across the house. Well, we have this art room near Andy's office. So I would go pose to work on my art so I could hear Andy's phone calls and what was going on at work.
Oh, I love true confession. It just makes you so human. I love that about you. Now, during these 66 days, though, and you have this schedule that you're following, when people start journaling, a lot of times they think they have to write this long 2 or 3 pages about their day and make it so it's wonderful to read. Uh, what did you start with your journal, and about how long were your entries?
In the beginning, they were really long because I think I was doing lots of reflection. And today they're not very long. Like my journal entries today, maybe a page. But in the beginning, they were really long because I was going back and I was looking at like, how did I get here? Like,
Mm.
how did I get so burned out that I got here? Right. Um, and so I just started doing tons of reflection in the beginning. And pretty quickly, I had written a new course out of those journal entries.
Oh my word, this is fabulous because you then used what you went through to help others, which doesn't surprise me because you're always about adding value to other people. When you were going through all that leading up to wanting this sabbatical and just burning out, did you have hobbies or anything that you did, or was it just focused on work?
So funny, Diana. In 2020, I'll never forget. I mean, we're all working from home, and Andy has tons of hobbies, right? And my kids have hobbies. And I remember one night we're sitting down and they're all doing something that they love. And Andy goes, "You need a hobby." And I said, "I have one." And he said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "It's real estate." And he was like, "That cannot be your hobby. Like, absolutely not. That's not your hobby." He's like, "Seriously, Lesley, you need a hobby." Well, fast forward a couple of years during this whole burnout saga as I'm reading books and, self-help type stuff. I read something, I think it came from a book called From Strength to Strength, but it talked about if you work with your mind all day, you need a hobby that is working with your hands. And if you work with your hands all day, you need a hobby that, where you work with your mind. And I thought, God, that's it. So I had started painting a little bit during COVID, but of course, 2021 happened and that all went to the wayside. So during sabbatical, I said, you know what? I'm going to bring back the hobbies. And so my mom has sewn my entire life. I mean, she used to smock my dresses as a kid. And I never had an interest in sewing. I mean, it's a little too detailed for me, but she said, you know what? You would really love needle pointing because it's pretty easy. And so I thought, that sounds fun. And so you can make these little circular needlepoint ornaments. So I started making needlepoint ornaments for my children, and I still do it today. In fact, I have a whole set back here in this cabinet that I'm working on. And so it just became something to honestly, Diana, kind of rest my mind and keep my mind from constantly wandering back to work.
The research I did for my book and that studying the brains, doing brain scans, helping other people is what I desired to do. I found that the most intelligent and some of the most successful people said they had to have a hobby to take their mind away from what was going on. They also said they had to get up earlier because getting up early, they find, actually helps your mental state. So you're still doing all of this and your business is doing very, very well because you established it with a great foundation and everyone knew and honored you, right? Or did they work to get you back in the business?
I only had about a handful of people that really pushed over sabbatical to get me back. And Andy was my complete buffer and the best partner. And he would just shut it down and he would say no. I actually had a couple of teaching commitments that I kept because I had scheduled them so far out. And it was honestly just like a breath of fresh air to have a couple of those because it got me excited and passionate about what I was looking forward to about going back. And so that ended up being great. But I really did well and I rarely got pulled into anything.
You mentioned a word, boundaries. And I don't care if you're in a sabbatical or you're in your business right now or with your family, every one of us need boundaries. You were a people pleaser. So how did you start putting boundaries up and what boundaries did you put up?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And honestly, that was my course content that I ended up writing in my journal in the first like week or two over sabbatical because I noticed this theme and it was all boundary related. So I never wanted to say no to anyone. So if a client called me at 7 o'clock and my family's having dinner, I would have stepped away and taken the phone call. And so I looked back and thought the soccer games I dipped out early for, or just the little things that where I wasn't present, where my feet were planted, because I constantly felt pulled. I think it's all about defining script conversations and becoming comfortable with those scripts and conversations, and understanding that when you say yes to everything, you're saying no to yourself. And saying
That's
no.
so good. Let's say that again. Let's say that again, because I want people to really listen to that. When you say yes
to everyone else, when you say yes to everyone else, you are saying no to yourself. And so I just got really clear on, for me, this is my rule, is it didn't help me immediately go to no, because I mean, I'm from South Alabama. My mom raised me like a little Southern girl, so polite. And so no's really hard for me to say. So what I say is no, not right now.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that script. That's a good one to learn, because you want to help people. You want to do a good job. And so now you establish these boundaries and you kind of give up that people pleaser. You decide what it is that you desire, though, and values was a big thing that hit you during this sabbatical.
Yeah. So it's so funny, Dianna. I was reading your book and then I started sabbatical, and I think I was finishing your book during the first few days of sabbatical. And I actually took your book and I wrote notes, and I've never done that before with a book, but I wrote notes as I was taking it the whole way through, and things to go back on. And when I got to the value section, it was like this kind of stab you in the front. I was like, I was on this hamster wheel, right? My entire career. And honestly, it was to achieve the next thing, because I'm such an achiever personality. So it was like hamster wheel, achievement, achievement, achievement. And I never slowed down long enough to really think about what I valued. And
What did you find out?
yeah, I mean, it's so fun. Dianna, I made this list when I was reading your book, and it's still on my computer. Now you know why we wanted to come back to my office to do this call instead of Andy's. I mean, I keep it and I look at it there's two I have on here, and one says things are always working out for me. And then the second one is my values, and they're growth, family, fun, achievement, integrity, and creativity.
Love that. And so doing that value exercise from the book, what did you learn during that time of doing the exercise?
Well, first of all, I learned that I had not focused on them at all, right? I also feel like I had shown up when the team needed me in any way, and not necessarily in my strength zone all the time or something that I valued. And then I also thought about a lot of relationships that I'd had along the way in business or our personal life where the values just didn't align. And so I could go back and I could see trends of when team members wouldn't work out on the team, it was because there was no alignment in values. And so we became really clear about knowing, and I brought this to Andy actually as all this is happening. I'm bringing it to him and I'm saying, we've got to get clear about when we go in partnership with people that there is an alignment around values and an understanding of values. And so I really honestly thought about during that time of sabbatical, what do I want to happen coming out of this sabbatical? Number one, I want to continue all the habits. I want to take care of myself. I want to take care of my family. But I want to operate in a space that aligns with my values of freedom and growth and achievement, right? And honestly, it kind of changed everything, because coming out of sabbatical, we made the decision to go all in for me on the market centers. So I am 100% in the market centers where I wasn't before. And I am teaching and in the classroom. Imagine that, Dianna, first grade teacher back in the classroom all the time. So
you made full circle around. You found that you really do enjoy helping other people through teaching and coaching. I get that. Now, did you just jump back in after these 66 days, or did you ease into it? What happened?
I came back like full on ready to go. And in the first 3 months back, though, I reevaluated everything. And so that clarity that I gained on sabbatical helped me go back into the businesses and really think through, okay, where is my place? Where can I make the biggest impact? And what am I passionate about? Right? Like, I finally feel like, Dianna, I'm at this point in my life where I can work by choice and not necessity.
Isn't that great? And clarity is such power. And you can tell that you have that energy of being in the present moment, which is a success energy that I talk about in the book. When you called me about the values and you said, I've read this chapter a couple of times, and I realized that we're not using values enough in our marketing or in our business. How did you incorporate those values into your business when you went back to work?
Do you know that I have brought it into almost every consulting conversation I have had with agents? I mean, Dianna, it's so funny. In fact, someone called me last week and said, Lesley, you will not believe this. I did the value exercise. I've joined a team. This has been my dream to be in business and on this team. And she was like, it all started with a conversation about you having me do values. And so, Dianna, I really think it goes into, as a leader, in developing our people to get them to slow down so they understand their values and honestly how they're getting along with other people in their offices, right? How they're interacting, and if they understand all their values.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can work with people that don't have the same beliefs. We have a hard time working with people that don't have the same values. And I know that you light up when I talk about going around the world with John Maxwell and his team teaching values to kids. I watched you when I talked about that, because values have become such a big part of you and part of your world, helping other people. And to hear that you're helping other people find their values, it just makes my heart sing, so to speak. And I can't believe our time is up, yet I want you to share with us what's the biggest thing, the biggest lesson that you would love for our people to learn through your life in becoming more.
Sometimes I think you have to take a step back in order to take a step forward. And sometimes you have to really just pause and just think about what it is that you really want in life. Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you following your passion? Are you aligned with your values? And just pausing long enough and being okay taking a step backwards, because if you do, doors will open and you will take a step forward.
Wow, Lesley, that is great, great advice. It's like the archer, they literally have to pull the bow backwards to make anything go forward. And that's the story of our life and becoming more. Thank you so much for being with me. Now, all of you that are listening or watching this on YouTube, I want you to know, go back and listen to Lesley and Andy, her husband, when they speak about the business and the things that they've been through to become more. Also listen to the individual podcast that her husband did. You'll get to know this wonderful couple as I do. You will not meet a greater couple in business together, where they work together, they have fun together, and they literally add value to everyone that touches their lives, as they've added value to ours in becoming more. Watch us next week. We'll be back with the next person that will help us. Thank you so much, Lesley.
Thank you, Dianna. I loved it.
In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.